You're entering the future-ready CNBC TV 18 eBix Cash Studio.
Hello and welcome to Money, 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 your weekly personal finance date with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. COVID-19 has put health insurance at the center stage of every financial plan. In fact, I would call it perhaps the first step in any wealth planning exercise. As concerns around a potential third wave and the Omicron variant continue around the world and of course in India, we're going back to the basics. Health Insurance 101, the learnings from this pandemic and everything you need to know and you need to ask before buying or renewing your health policy. Well, let's introduce our guests on the show. Today I have with me Sanjiv Bajaj, Joint Chairman and Managing Director of Bajaj Capital, as well as Amit Chhabra, Head of Health Insurance at PolicyBazaar.com. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. It's as important a subject as any. I think it's one of the subjects closest to my heart. So, we also wanted to take the opportunity to expand the conversation today into asking a larger question. Whether Mediclaim, having one Mediclaim policy is enough, or whether we need to have a portfolio approach like we have for our mutual funds, whether we need to have a portfolio approach even to health insurance. There are lots of different products in the market, so let's get down to the specifics. Amit, I'll start with you. Opening thoughts on this subject.
See, I think firstly, what has happened in the last 2 years is that there is a great awareness of health insurance that's come up. Unfortunately, it's come up because we were all stuck by COVID, and we saw around us, people getting impacted. So there's a lot of awareness now, which means more and more people want to be covered. I think the next point which beckons is how much is enough and what exactly do you need, and we'll talk about it as we sort of go into the show. But I think the key point is that one, the group health insurance. A lot of people do think that group health insurance that you get from your office or from your employer may be sufficient. That is, that's a very popular notion. But what we have seen is that that may not necessarily always hold true. And then secondly, having, let's say, a 5 lakh cover, again, which is a very popular notion that I have 5 lakhs of coverage, that's enough. That again may not be enough. So I think these are the two important notions to be clear on. And secondly, what else do we need along with, as you said, in sort of a portfolio kind of an approach? I think these become very important points as we go forward with Omicron sort of looking at us.
So we will talk about some of these aspects in more detail as we go along. Sanjiv, let me get some opening thoughts from you as well. For a lot of us, we just think, okay, fine, at least we have the office health cover and that should be enough. But is that the right approach, or do we need to think a little more deeply given the dynamics, medical inflation, and obviously the fact that we are still in a pandemic?
Yeah, so Surabhi, office health cover is never enough. See, that's a temporary protection you have till the company is deciding to provide it. So you have to understand the company can choose to withdraw it any time. And with the way the rates have gone up, almost 40% of the group life insurance cover is now stands withdrawn. So it can go away anytime. And if you're looking at a long-term protection, and especially if you have a high blood pressure, diabetes, or any other ailment, then you'll be totally left uncovered. So having your own individual health insurance is a must. Also, the health insurance, contrary to the belief, despite the pandemic, the cost have gone down if you buy a larger sum insured, because companies have also realized that if there is a 5 lakh policy or a 50 lakh policy, the amount of claim paid is not that much different. So today, the price difference between a 5 lakh and a 50 lakh policy has come down to a marginal maybe 20-30% because of the super top-ups and now the new plans which include the additional cover. Plus, also you need to be careful about room rate caps and some of the older features. Last year in October, IRDA had upgraded the health covers, and the new health covers as per the new policy provide a much better protection. So it's a time that you must relook at your health insurance if you have bought it before 1st October 2021 and ensure you port to the best product that is available. And in fact, it will be much cheaper. It will give you much better coverage. And it will cover many more treatments.
Sanjiv, wait a minute. I want to go back to what you just said. I kind of get that because I was renewing my own health insurance and I realized that you can actually get very, very large covers, and we'll come to the combination and how to get a big cover in just a moment. But did you say that health insurance costs have not risen in the last 1 year? There's been a lot of worry about the potential rise in premiums. But what have you observed across insurers in the last 12 months?
Surbhi, the prices have risen for smaller sum insured. So if you were at a 5 lakh rupees sum insured, then the prices have definitely gone up. But what has happened is that the 20 lakh, 40 lakhs, 50 lakh sum insured, or even a 1 crore or a 3 crore cover, the prices have fallen drastically. Because earlier that was available only to a few select. Now it's available much more widely. So what has happened, if you look at smaller sum insured, yes, the prices have gone up. But if you look at a larger sum insured, like 40, 50 lakhs, the prices have come down drastically. So that's what I'm telling them. The difference between a 5 lakh and a 50 lakh cover today is a marginal, and a 50 lakh cover gives you a proper coverage. Like in pandemic, we have seen people with a 3 lakh, 5 lakh cover, which they used to think is enough, went to the hospital with COVID and came back with an 18 lakhs or more than that. This thing, because when you're in a coma, you have no choice. And you don't know, you can control, family members are not allowed inside. So it was absolutely crazy what has happened.
Yeah.
So it's a must for you to increase your life cover.
No, I completely take your point, because, you know, you've heard family and, you know, friends talk about their experiences, and it's been really disheartening in you know, many cases. But just on the subject of cost and premiums, Amit, your observations, I mean, across multiple insurers that you've been sort of looking at, products that you've been looking at, do you concur that costs have gone up only for plans where the sum insured is low? And my bigger, more important question is, what about the coming year? In 2022, will health insurance start pinching us in terms of just higher cost?
Well, I think what Sanjiv said is exactly right. So the premium increases that have happened, and they have happened only in a few cases. Wherever they have happened, they are predominantly in low sum insureds only, not 2 lakh, 3 lakh, 5 lakh. That is one part. In the higher sum insureds, you know, it's actually come down. So earlier, and when I say earlier, let's say 2 years back, when let's say somebody was buying a 1 crore cover, they used to buy a base plan of 1 crore, which was very expensive. Right now, if somebody wants to buy a 1 crore cover, they would typically buy a 10 lakh plus a 90 lakh super top up, which ends up being significantly cheaper. So that price is actually down by about 30% compared to a base plan. So that's part one. And there's also another important perspective here that I like to bring out. See, a lot of people, and historically, a lot of people have bought policies from banks, from various channels which are selling a group cover, which are actually not even selling a retail plan. Now, the problem is these policies typically are not, these are group plans, and they're not regulated by the IRDAI as closely as retail products. There we have seen a lot of scenarios where these products have either even been discontinued, or there's been a bank merger and now suddenly there's a new product in place which is, let's say, 2x or 3x of the previous policy. Or since they're not very closely regulated, there are even scenarios that the prices have increased by 2x or 3x. So that's a reality as well. And we see this a lot with senior citizens, with people who are now 60, 70, 80-year-old who can't even get a new policy now. And they're now stuck with that old policy because it is a group policy which is not as closely regulated by the IRDAI. Comparatively, when I compare this to retail plans, where IRDAI looks at it very, very closely.
Okay.
An insurance company is not even allowed to increase the price right now. So price increases are very closely guarded by the regulator. There have been multiple instances where price rises have been rejected. So I think it's important for the viewers and for all the health insurance buyers to also understand what kind of a plan they're buying. This is a technicality which a lot of people don't know. But a group policy versus a retail policy, you are much more safeguarded in a retail policy compared to a group policy. So that's also, I think, one important thing which viewers must look at.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point that we have taken note of, that it's these individual policies that offer a whole range of features, and we'll talk about some of them as we move along. But before we get to the critical question of what sort of a health cover should I buy, gentlemen, I want to ask you both about the most important learnings. You live and you learn, as they say. So let's try and understand the most important lesson from the last 12 months, the pandemic year. Sanjiv, what would you say is the biggest thing that we must keep in mind given the pandemic situation?
The most important lesson is that 5 lakh is not enough. You must have a super top-up. You must also plan that in a family floater, there can be a pandemic type situation where almost 2-3 family members fall sick at the same time. So the sum insured that you had thought was enough will not be enough. And today it just costs 2,000-3,000 rupees to buy a super top-up, to take your 5 lakh plan to a 30-40 lakh plan. or you pay another 5,000-6,000 rupees, 7,000 rupees, and you can upgrade to a 40-50 lakh plan. So point is that today anything less than 30 lakh as a sum insured is totally not feasible for a family, and a family should look at minimum 30 lakhs, and if you can afford it, then go for a higher 1 crore, 2 crore cover, because costs are increasing and it's better to have a better cover. The second thing is that prices are going up in terms of if you are maintaining the same plan or the lower sum insured. Today, there's an opportunity to pay 3-year premium in advance where you get some discounts, 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to do that. So then you, at least for the next 3 years, your prices are locked in. And especially if you're at an age when you know next year your premium is going to go up because you're reaching the next age band like 44 to 45 or 49 to 50, then you can pay 3 years and take advantage of that. So those are some small savings, but yeah, it can save you a few thousand or few 10, 15, 20,000 rupees.
Yeah, why not keep in mind? So all the 44-year-olds, please keep that in mind. Your slab is going to change, so will your premium. All the 49-year-olds need to keep that in mind as well. Amit, same question. The biggest learning that you think, policy buyers need to keep in mind from the last 12 months?
I think the biggest learning that we've seen is a lot of customers don't even know what policy they have. They don't know what features they have, what limitations the product has. And they just buy, typically, you would have bought from an agent who you just trusted. But what you end up realizing is you don't even know what sum insured you have, what room rent capping you had, or, if your product had a copay or not. Or let's say, did your product provide you home care treatment or not? So, see, health insurance is something which when you're buying, you're not buying for today. You're buying for 5 years, 10 years down the line. You don't even know if that agent will be there with you at that point or not. So, I think it's important that when you're buying a health insurance for yourself, you must know what you're buying, what features, what products. It's supposed to be a very heavily involved purchase.
Yeah.
So you must be sure and aware of what you're buying. And then, one should make a balanced view about which health insurance to buy. Unfortunately, insurance in India is a very push sale, which means, a lot of it is driven by what the seller wants to sell, which a lot of times ends up being a very commercial reason as well.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important that, you know what you're buying, be completely aware, and you don't want to be, surprised 5 years down the line.
Absolutely. Get that point. In fact, on that note, we're going to take a break, which is why we here at Money have a checklist ready for you. These are the questions you need to ask. These are the features you need to look out for before you go ahead and sign on for that new health insurance policy. Back in a moment. Welcome back. You're with us on Money, and we are discussing health insurance this week. Now, Amit, I wanted to get your take on this whole concept of enhanced coverage via super top-ups. Even I was completely surprised when I saw there are some plans in the market that are offering coverage of up to 1 crore. I thought it was a marketing gimmick, frankly, because I didn't see the need for like a 1 crore rupee cover. So you tell us whether it really makes sense, and how does one add the so-called super top-up to a base policy? How does this product work?
Sure. So in very basic terms, a super top-up is like any other health insurance policy. The only difference is that it comes with a deductible component. Now, what does a deductible mean? It basically means that a certain amount of claim will have to be paid by the customer. Post that, everything else will be paid by the insurance company. So let's take an example here. Assume I have a 10 lakh rupee base plan. What I can do is I can buy a 90 lakh rupee top-up. And what happens in this case is that the first 10 lakhs will be a deductible. This will be paid by the customer, which will either be paid by the customer or by the base plan. Rest of the 90 lakhs, post the first 10 lakhs are consumed, will be paid by the insurance policy itself, the super top-up base policy. So what this means is your first 10 lakhs are covered by the base plan and the rest of the 90 lakhs are covered by the super top-up. So in a sense, what ends up happening is that you have a 1 crore cover. So 10 lakhs from the base plan and 90 lakhs from the super top-up. Two important things to consider here from a customer point, when you're looking at buying a super top-up. One, prefer to buy from the same company, the same insurance company from which you have a base plan. It is important because it eases the whole claims process, because then it becomes one claim instead of, 2 claims with 2 separate companies.
Yeah.
And second thing, again, very important, make sure that the super top-up that you're buying has similar features, benefits, limitations as your base plan. Like if let's say your base plan has a room rent capping of a single private room, make sure that your super top up also has at least a single private room as a capping, because when you go for a claim, let's say a claim of 20 lakh rupees, you will be in a single private room for the base plan. You don't want to be shifting rooms midway.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think you raised some very important points, because that was one of my questions, that suddenly, let's say my hospital bill is 12 lakhs instead of 10 lakhs, then what happens? Will my coverage stop? Because the balance, 2 lakhs, how will they have to be paid separate claim? But you're saying that no, it goes in as one claim if it's one insurer. So that makes sense from a customer's point of view. Okay, that brings us to the checklist as well. And we're running out of time, gentlemen. So let's move on the checklist. Sanjiv, your first point, I've already noted that the coverage itself needs to be at least 30 lakhs, if not more. What else should one definitely look out for? And give us some examples of good comprehensive covers which meet this criteria list.
One of my favorite covers is Cigna Health Insurance. They have brought in a new product called Lifetime Health. So which is a beautiful product which almost covers the whole checklist, but it doesn't cover maternity. So if you're a younger age group couple who's looking at a maternity coverage, then that's not the plan for you. But if you're beyond the childbearing age, then this is an amazing plan for you. So the first thing is to look at is that there should be no cap on the room rates. Now, this becomes a huge problem and burden that if there are any caps on the room rate. Also, second is that you must have the flexibility of the type of treatments. So choose a plan which covers Ayurveda, alternative treatments. They are becoming bigger. So you should have the right to choose those treatments. The third thing I like people to keep in mind is what are the other things, like, what is the pre and post hospitalization coverage? Because, your costs are not only what you spend in the hospital, is the amount of money you spend later. And the fourth and the most important thing is, if you can afford it, most of the plans today give you an international coverage right option, where for 28, 29 critical illnesses, you can go anywhere in the world for treatment, and you can get at a very fractional cost a coverage of 1 crore to 2 crores to 3 crores. So we have to understand there are still some types of cancers and other things where the treatment is not available in India. So if you can afford it, then have an international coverage. So this is my basic checklist.
Okay.
But the most important thing is the consumables cover and the room rate cap. If you have an old policy which has that, it's time to move out. And also for everyone here, guys, this is the time to review your health insurance. It's very important to do a health insurance review. And as Amit said, you have to move to a better provider who can support you at the time of a claim.
Yes. Okay. That's a pretty comprehensive checklist. I think we'll all keep that in mind. Lots of important points covered. The consumables for the uninitiated, if you've been lucky enough not to get, involved in what can be a pretty messy affair in hospitals. These are basically your PPE kits, gloves, syringes, all these one-time use items, which typically are out of the purview of a regular Mediclaim, or at least used to be out of regular Mediclaim coverage. Amit, your thoughts on this? Anything you might want to add? And actually, we're running out of time, but I also had to ask you guys about any additional riders. Now, this is a checklist for a basic Mediclaim plan, but is there something else I should consider? Let's say if there's a history of diabetes in the family or cardiac ailments, does one need to already plan for that kind of coverage, or is that getting a little too, perhaps, too fearful?
So I think there will be two things. One from the checklist, I think one more thing that I'd like to add is look for plans which cover for domiciliary hospitalization, which is hospitalization at home. This, unfortunately became a reality last year when COVID was at its peak. You never know how things may pan out. So I think making sure that you have a coverage for hospitalization at home becomes very, very critical. So that's one. Second, I think to the point that you mentioned, a lot of products now have riders which can help you buy out a waiting period for a pre-existing disease. Like for simple example, let's say I have diabetes and I want early coverage for diabetes and I don't want to wait for, let's say, 3 years, 4 years for the coverage to happen. There are now plans available, or there are add-ons available through which you can get that coverage from day one itself, or let's say after 1 year or after 2 years. There are multiple options available. This is a huge peace of mind.
Amit, give an example. This is very, very important for so many senior citizens or anybody else really who has pre-existing diseases. Give us names of some of the insurers who are offering these add-ons, specifically for PEDs.
So Aditya Birla has a plan called Platinum Enhance, which basically covers for 4 illnesses: asthma, diabetes, blood pressure and high cholesterol from day one itself. It's a separate plan. You have to buy it. It's slightly expensive also. But what it means is that you get coverage from day one itself. Similarly, there are plans by Bajaj Allianz, there are plans by Care Health, by Niva Bupa, and by Star Health, all of which offer early coverage for diabetes or any of these illnesses. You have to buy a specific rider and they ensure that they give you early coverage. The objective is, as I said, right, it allows the customer to buy back the waiting period, which means your coverage for a pre-existing disease will start sooner than 3 or 4 years, which is a normal scenario.
Got it. Gentlemen, we could go on and on. This subject is so exhaustive and so important for all our well-being. But I think it's a good start. At least we have some basic rules that one can keep in mind while buying health insurance in 22 or even renewing our current policies. Thank you very much for the wealth of information that you've shared on the show today. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Money, Money, Money. We'll be back again with another theme next week.